lives as the crisis continues. Richard Galpin, BBC News.
And BBC Urdu reporter Sahar Baloch joins us now from Karachi. Sahar, the full scale of this disaster is very much still unfolding, isn't it? Tell us about the rescue operation, the rescue efforts.
Well, right now, what's happening is that rescue operations are continuing in most part of the country, specifically in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, where tourists were stranded. And right now, 40 tourists have been evacuated from there and 300 are stranded. So right now, rescue operations are also in some way, it is also limited because the access is limited and most part of the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is also cut off from the rest of the country. Similarly, Balochistan and Sindh province are equally the worst affected in terms of the disaster and everything that has happened there. And at the same time, they are equally cut off. Especially Balochistan, which was anyway very weak when it comes to infrastructure and road links and everything. So this disaster has only sort of made things worse for the provinces right now.
And the death toll, sadly, rising all the time. Just to put this in context, can you give us any idea of what percentage of the population is affected by this flooding?
Well, right now, 33 million people are affected by this. So this basically makes it up to 15% of the population is affected by the disaster, which a lot of ministers and the authorities that we have spoken to have said that this is worse than the floods that happened in 2010. And it is unfolding right now. A lot of things are coming to the fore as people are going to these places. The authorities are going there. The Prime Minister himself has gone to many of these provinces, specifically Balochistan, because that is anyway least developed and very weak when it comes to infrastructure and road connectivity and everything. So the Prime Minister went there and only then he realized like how much of a disaster has happened there, because there are very many small towns over there which are totally not linked to the rest of the country, and they were completely cut off when the disaster initially happened, because these rains have started from the mid of June, and since then it is only like increasing. And right now, even as I sit in the Sindh province, in the capital of Sindh right now, Karachi, there are warnings that more rain is going to happen in like next week, and flood water is going to come from the north towards the south, which is the Sindh province.
I spoke to one aid organisation yesterday, and the spokesperson was explaining that the government was depending on them and their well-established networks in certain areas to deliver aid to people, both the rescue effort actually, as well as shelter and food and medical aid. Now, we mentioned in the introduction, Sahar, about the concerns that there may be food shortages. So where is help going to come from on that front? Will there be a sufficient response from the authorities? Can they cope with this? Or will many of the people affected by these floods be relying on aid agencies?
Well, they are relying on aid agencies, and there are also local aid agencies who are also helping. Like, for instance, we have Rescue 1122, and then we have Al Khidmat Foundation. So they are local organizations who are helping the people, but they're not enough. So that's why the Prime Minister then had to appeal to international donor aid agencies. And now today, as we speak right now, the UAE government has sent an aircraft of relief goods for the people, which basically includes tents and foods and medicine for the people, which is actually required urgently. At the same time, what you said about food shortage, what will happen in the coming days is that, right now the crops are completely destroyed. So in the coming few weeks and months, what the country will have to deal with is like how they will import vegetables and where they will import these vegetables from, because most of the crop is completely destroyed. During the last floods, when it happened, Pakistan had to then, speak with India to import as much vegetables as they could. So there is a need, to get that in order as well. Like an immediate response, as you asked me earlier, right now there is a food, urgency. A lot of places need, people to get like freshly cooked food and not something that is raw. Like for instance, in the beginning, the rescue teams were sending them raw food, like for instance, rice and wheat and everything. So the urgent need is for them to have cooked food and something that they don't have to sort of make themselves, because they have nothing to rely upon right now. They do not have homes. They do not have their kitchens anymore.
And Sahar, as the floodwaters flow downriver, is it too late to do anything other than warn people in the path of those floodwaters to get to higher ground?
Yes, right now evacuations are happening based on that. For instance, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, when the news came out that the nearest rivers were, especially the Kabul River and the Indus River, were increasing, where the water was increasing, people were evacuated. So far, 350,000 people have been evacuated. So those efforts are also happening. But at the same time, people do not want to leave their land where they have been living for so long. So this is also something that we saw in Sindh and many parts of Balochistan as well. That people do not want to leave their ancestral lands, where one family of for instance, 50 or 60 people, they live in the same compound, and they do not want to leave that because that is exactly from where they get their food from. So they do not want to leave it and go somewhere else because they fear that what if they are never able to come back to those places. So that is also one of the concerns.
Sahar, thank you very much for bringing us up to date. Sahar Baloch there in Karachi for us.